Hi, John.
Evening.
Can you hear me? Or
Yep.
am I breaking all up?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't. I'm using a different outlet. I don't know why I'm having such problems.
Well, what's happening now sounds like a bandwidth issue. It sounds like your internet.
Let me try. I've been on here for a while. I'm going to try to reboot Zoom. I'll be right back.
You might try just you know oh no, he's gone. You there, Vanessa?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I told Joseph this morning that I'm I'm not quite on the last chapter. I'm about halfway through the second to last chapter.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh good.
I told him that the only problem is I said, so when's the second book coming out? And he said in a couple of months. I said, okay, well that's good, but it's one of those kind of things where you just can't put it down. So you read through it, and then it's like, oh my God, now I have to wait at least a year, maybe 2 years until the next installment. It's like waiting for the next Lord of the Rings movie to come out.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It's really good, and I really like the fact that it has such a strong message of virtue, and really differentiating between good and evil, while at the same time, kind of, the main characters, they definitely their desire is to be good, but they do see how they can have to make difficult choices sometimes, well, am I doing something bad by choosing this versus that? But this, this is a greater good, or that kind of stuff, and just kind of the struggles that people go through for that kind of stuff. And so it's good. I really like it.
Oh good.
Whenever I read that kind of stuff, I'm always trying to predict where this thing's going, and see if I'm right. I have my predictions in my.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. So it's good. I'm right where they've taken off to take Sir Sansel, I think is his name, to the neighboring country, and they haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Well, you've read my favorite scene. That's the ice battle. That's the one that I feel like is, for me, the most intense.
Yeah.
It was hard to edit because I'd get to reading and be like, wow, this is really interesting. And then I'd get to the end and be like, oh, I didn't even check it for commas.
That was good, especially the thought process that Charles was going through. That was cool. Yeah. So that was good. So anyway, it's been good, and I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. So it very, very much has the feel of an RPG to it.
RPG.
Yeah, a role-playing game.
Oh, well, yeah, that's probably no surprise. Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, it's like each chapter is a little episode, and where there's this quest that
you got this little you got the main.
This little assignment. Yeah.
You can do this little
I thought the same thing.
But it's very good, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that kind of feel to it. And but the thing that I think, it has a really good pace to it, and you don't want to put it down, and
well, good.
So it's good.
Very good.
It's good. And like I said, the virtue aspect of it is really good.
Yeah, it was sort of designed to be a exciting book that young people could get into, but that had something of actual merit to it, where it wasn't just excitement, but was more inspirational.
Yeah. Do you guys do any promoting of it?
Well, we did some Facebook ads in that early on. I guess we pretty much decided for the last few months to just wait until book 2 came out and advertise them together. And so a lot of the proceeds from book 1 will be reinvested into advertising for book 2. But one of the challenges if you self-publish is you don't have a publisher to do your advertising for you. But if you sign on with a publisher, then you have to sign your soul away. And so it was kind of give and take, and we finally settled on self-publishing.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm gonna ping Renee real quick.
John, is this a book that would be of interest to STF?
Well, it's a fictional. It's a novel, fantasy genre novel. So it's not the kind of thing that STF would publish typically. In fact, I don't know that STF has ever published anything like that. But it certainly could be something that we could find a way to help promote.
Yeah, I mean, at least promote. I mean, if it's godly and edifying and
it definitely is.
Well, then I think we should help them. I think we could at least put a link somewhere on it's something for you guys to talk about and think about. If it's fantasy, I love fantasy, so I gotta get a copy of it.
Oh, you should. If you like fantasy, you definitely enjoy it. It's really good.
I love fantasy.
I don't even remember what it's called now. What is it called?
Have any of you watched
Overtaken by Destiny?
Overtaken by Destiny. Okay.
All right, I gotta find something to write down. But have any of you seen the Netflix series called Once Upon a Time?
I've seen a few episodes from the first season.
I really like that one. I think that's very well done as far as a production on television. I like it. It's kind of fun because these are all our childhood heroes, and people that we associate with. And it's a traditional epic, good versus evil. So as long as good wins, I'm all right. All right. Something with Destiny. What was it?
Overtaken by Destiny.
I guess you just couldn't handle the title.
Was intense.
Well, all right. Let me ping Jerry too. He's going to join us tonight as well. And we'll get started here in a second.
Vanessa, can I get that book on Amazon, or do I need to go to a special website to get that?
No, it's available on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback.
Okay. Oh, I want the book. I don't want. I don't
I'm
like
the same way.
I'm old time. I want to feel the pages, smell the pages, turn the pages.
Me too.
All right. Well, why don't I sent a message to Renee, so we'll see if she's able to join us.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. You're with Jerry. Oh,
Yes.
awesome. Perfect. Okay, great. All right. Well, I tell you what. Why don't we pray real quick? Dennis, would you like to pray?
Yep. Heavenly Father, thank you for your love, your grace, your mercy in our lives. You know our hearts, Lord. You know what we want to do. We want to be a shining example of you and of your Son, Jesus Christ. We want to be able to reach people, Lord. We want to touch their hearts. We want to show them the love that we've experienced. We want to teach them the truth that sets people free, just like we know it. Father, thank you for continuing to work with us and show us, open our eyes, enlighten our minds. Thank you for this evening and for John putting this together. And we can share with one another and look forward to reaching other people with the gospel of the good news and of the kingdom. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Well, I thought for tonight that what we'd try to do, okay, so there's 4 people. Well,
the audio connect in here.
Oh, we're looking at the ceiling. There we go. Aha. Renee, I've forgotten your husband's first name.
Danny.
Danny.
How's it going, Kirk?
Hi, Danny.
Nice to meet you.
I like the sword back there.
Yeah, they've got swords on all their walls in here. It's a little bit scary.
Her brother is a sword collector.
Yeah, DS collects swords.
Okay. We were talking before you guys joined. Do you remember how Joseph Hale's an author, and he's written a fantasy novel, and
Yep.
the second one's coming out in a couple of months. So I'm almost done. I got 1 chapter basically left in the first book.
Nice.
Very, very good. Definitely get it, read it. You'll enjoy it.
I have it sitting on my bookshelf. I just haven't
Uh-oh. Is that
started
mine?
it yet, so it's on my pile of tree. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
I thought what would be really good to do just tonight is kind of a beginning is sort of get this thing organized the way that you guys would like to see it. So I thought we'd cover 3 things, and then if you guys have other things too, we can add to the list. But to go through and talk about the topics, kind of potential topics. I have a list, working list of both questions that people have that we could tackle, as well as tactics of sharing faith and answering questions and dealing in apologetics. So I've got those. We can go through those, and then try and decide on a priority for those things. What is it that you guys want to handle first and handle last, that kind of thing. Then the second thing is to talk about a schedule for this. Talk about is once a month good? Is that is that not enough? Is it too much? That kind of thing. And is this time good? Those kinds of questions. And then the third thing, talk about how do we get people who have questions engaged in the discussion, to come and ask their questions, to hear answers, and hopefully to get those questions answered and increase their faith. So that's what I was thinking about tonight. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to try and talk about tonight?
I think that's really good foundation work. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So let me, and I will send this to you guys, but let me pull this up. So this is a list of, I think, the most common things that people ask about or ask questions about. And so I'm just going to go through the list in no particular order. And what I'd like to ask you guys to be thinking about is what you think the priorities in this list should be. What should we tackle sooner than later? That kind of thing. So the first question is there a God? That's a that's a pretty basic foundational question. Is there a God? And the second is, what kind of God is the right God? There's lots of different God choices out there. What makes one right and another one wrong? What is a worldview? I think that's kind of a fundamental topic that is. I've got it in here. It's not really a question that people necessarily have, but I think it's important for people to understand that everybody has a worldview, and you filter everything that you encounter, you think about, you question, you believe through that filter of your worldview, and it's worldviews that make people understand things, and it's worldviews that make people blind to things. So it's very important subject. So the next one is, do science and religion deal with different things? That's a pretty common objection is, well, science and religion, they're two different things altogether. Science deals with, facts and, the natural world and reality and all that kind of stuff. And religion deals with the heart and morality and that kind of stuff, and so they're really different things. Is that really true? Are they really different things? The answer is no. By the way, they are both. When it comes to the truth about the universe, they're both answering the same questions, and both are helpful. Then, was Jesus really resurrected? I think that's a pretty big question and an important question. Is the Bible God's word? Is the Bible reliable? How old is the earth, and does it matter? This is my favorite question. It's the question I get the most. As soon as people find out that I deal in this stuff, this is almost, I give it 80% of the time, this is the first question they ask, is what about the dinosaurs? And, it's top of mind for a lot of people that are questioning faith, are questioning Christianity and the Bible and all that kind of stuff. What about dinosaurs? And it's a fun topic. It's a great topic. The funny thing about it is the dinosaur subject in reality is supportive of a biblical worldview, but it's fairly irrelevant.
Right.
It really is very irrelevant. And but once you dig into it, you see why it's such a big deal, and that all has to do with, again, worldviews, and has nothing to do with the actual existence or science of dinosaurs.
Right.
Okay, so the next three are philosophical questions. These are the three fundamental philosophical questions, and they're very important. And the last of the three is probably the most important question on my list, but it's one of the more difficult questions to even understand the question. But it's by far the most important one. But the first one is what's called the existential question. It's typically asked this way: why is there something rather than nothing? Why does anything exist? Right? Forget about how old the earth is, or did people evolve from apes? Forget about all that. Why does anything exist at all? Right? And the second question is called the moral question. You can ask it several different ways. I like to ask it in the sense of, why is there true morality? Because everybody actually knows there really is true morality, even if they deny it. But a typical way that it gets asked is, are there true absolute morals? Right? And what is that? What does that indicate about the universe? The third question is the knowledge question, or technically in philosophical speak is the epistemological question. And you can ask that question typically in the following way: how do you know that you actually have knowledge? And the reason this is the most important question is because everything else comes from this, that if your worldview doesn't adequately address this question, there's no reason to address anything else about your worldview. Because if your worldview can't adequately answer this question, everything else that you believe is irrelevant in your worldview, right? So if your worldview, for just a quick example, materialism says that everything is material. And if everything is material, it's just chemicals in motion, then what the conclusion that leads to is that you don't actually have free will, you don't actually have a mind, you're not actually a person, you're just a function of chemistry, right? And that's where it goes. That's what it leads to. That's why a lot of materialist philosophers end up killing themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not a joke. They really do. A large number over the last couple of centuries have committed suicide because they work it out to this end and they realize they don't even really exist. And so the problem with that is, if that's true, if everything that you believe and you know is actually just a chemical reaction, it's baking soda and vinegar fizzing, right? It's just a chemical reaction. That's all it is. Then you can't actually have knowledge, including the knowledge that materialism is true.
Right.
Which means all of materialism is simply irrelevant. You can't even begin anywhere with it because it doesn't answer this. It doesn't adequately address this question because it denies it. It says, well, you can't actually have knowledge. Well, then in fact, you can't actually know that you can't have knowledge. So therefore, you don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
And it just ends up being stupid. All right, so uniformitarianism versus catastrophism is the next one. It's not really a question, but it's a subject. It's an important subject because most of modern science that deals with the history of things takes an approach to that called uniformitarianism. In other words, you explain the past by looking at processes in the present. Right? So you say the Grand Canyon we see today has a little trickle of a river running through it. So it's had a little trickle of a river running through it and it kind of erodes the bed down at the bottom every year a little bit, right? Therefore, this has been going on for millions of years, and that's how the Grand Canyon was carved, right? So that's uniformitarianism. You look at what's happening now, and you interpret the past based on that. Catastrophism says, no, that doesn't really work, right? Some things, sure. You can look at some present processes and say, that's how it might have happened in the past. But catastrophism says you can also have very rapid change from large catastrophes. And so Mount St. Helens, for instance, demonstrated that canyons can be formed in a matter of hours.
Yep.
All right, so that's next. The next one is obviously a big one. Is evolution true? Did people really evolve from rocks? And it's so funny because Answers in Genesis likes to put it this way, and I think it's hilarious because what people typically say likes to button up their shirt, put on their tie, and say, well, in a very scientific way, that people evolved from an ape-like ancestor. Well, okay, but it also teaches that people evolve from rocks.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You go from a rock to a person. And okay, if that's what you want to believe. But is it true? And there's lots of and that leads to the next question, which is, what is intelligent design? Because intelligent design completely debunks evolution. But you have to know what intelligent design is, what it is not, and what it's capable of saying and telling you, and what it is not capable of saying and telling you. And if you get those things straight, you can get to the point where you can see, okay, no, evolution did not occur. At least not in the way that is currently proposed. The next one is, and this one is a very, very big deal from a biblical worldview standpoint. Did Noah's flood really happen, and was it global? And if so, can we know that other than from the Bible? Are the first 10 or 11 chapters of Genesis actual narrative history, or are they just myths or stories to teach some sort of spiritual truths. And then finally, and this I believe is the most difficult question. It's probably the most important question that people who are questioning faith that they deal with, and it's one of the more difficult questions to actually answer, and that is, why is there so much evil in the world? And what does that say about the God of the Bible? And so those are the apologetic question topics or important subject topics that I could come up with, that I've either encountered or are common questions that I've seen being addressed, that kind of thing. And then I've got a few. These are tactics of apologetics. So not so much answering questions, but these are really good learning tools on how to interact with people in ways on the subject that open the door, keep the door open, that have that are an attractive way to dialogue with people, that don't create walls and barriers, but rather open up people's hearts and minds to actually having a good dialogue. So the first is clarification questions, learning to really get to the point where you truly understand where the other person's coming from. That's a big, big deal. And frankly, I don't know how much of the time, but it's a lot of the time, if you can just get the other person to clarify their position, they typically will realize they believe something that is bogus. Next is reversal questions, where you're able to sort of help a person not only clarify and dig a little deeper, but also kind of turn it around on them. So for instance, when someone says, there are no absolute truths, right? A reversal question would be, is that absolutely true? Right? Oh, wait a minute. Okay. It kind of helps people see things from a different perspective. The next 5 come from Nancy Pearcey's book, the Finding Truth. Those 2 come from Greg Koukl's book, Tactics, which is a great book on this subject. These next 5 come from Nancy Pearcey's Finding Truth, and these are really, really good. And she has a 5-fold process that she calls unmasking atheism and other modern isms and religions and philosophies and that sort of thing, unmasking them, and then helping people to see the truth of Christianity by comparison. And so here's the 5-fold steps. The first one is that any kind of ism, philosophy, religion, whatever, that does not have at its core the kind of God found in the Bible will be idolatrous. What idolatry is, it's the worship of something within the creation rather than the creator. And so the first thing is to identify what is the idol. So taking materialism again, the idol of materialism is matter and energy, right? That basically matter in motion, if you will. And so it sets up matter as the explanation for everything in the universe. Matter and physics, right? Matter and motion. And so you identify what the idol is first, because the idol is going to help you to begin to define where the weak points are. So the second part is to identify its reductionism, which is the any form of idolatry must by definition reduce mankind from its position from man's position in the universe, created in the image of God, and in one form or another. The other thing that it's going to reduce is it's going to reduce reality, because there will be some way in which reality does not fit into the box of that idol. The way that Piercy puts it is, if you picture a box that is the explanation of whatever the ism is in the idol, that they take all of reality and they try and fit it in that box. But the problem is, some piece of reality is going to be sticking outside of that box because it doesn't fit in the box, because the box is not big enough. The third thing, so you identify, and when you identify the reductionism, what you do is you identify the weakness. So, for instance, once again, I like picking on materialism because it's one of the easier ones to pick on. The materialist says that there's no such thing as mind. So mind, because there can't be, because matter and energy and physics are all there is. So something supernatural like mind, personhood, spirit, that kind of thing, your actual self, that doesn't actually exist. It's an illusion created by the chemicals running around in your brain, right? Well, that places mind outside the box. So now the reality that you do actually have a mind and you are actually thinking and you do actually make choices every day is outside the box. And typically what happens is, people who are trying to fit everything into their box, and they have to have stuff that's outside the box, they will deny that those things exist, which they can't, and they know it, and many times they'll actually write about that. That even though they don't believe there's anything such as free will, they can't live that way. The next one is, okay, so that's actually the next one. You identify the way in which it denies reality. And then the next one is you identify how it self-contradicts, because typically in some way or another, they're going to self-contradict. They're going to blow themselves up or do they'll become what's called self-referentially absurd. Going back to the postmodern idea that there are no absolute truths, and you reverse that and say, is that absolutely true? It just blew itself up, right? If there are no absolute truths, then it can't be true. And since it's not true, then why pay any attention to it? And then finally, you identify the Christian, the way in which Christianity has integrity and consistency for the weak area of whatever that religion or philosophy, whatever that idolatry was. Whatever it reduced, that Christianity does not reduce that. Christianity says, no, we're made in the image of God. He has a mind. We have a mind. It perfectly explains that we have a mind. He is free. We are actually free, right? It explains the different things. Because God is the God of the Bible is the first cause of everything, and he's eternal. He's an uncaused first cause. He has the ability to then speak and say what is true. And that's how we can have knowledge, that we actually can know because God said so. And it sounds kind of funny when you first say it, but from a philosophical standpoint, it's critically important. You have to have some way of knowing that you can actually know something. And the way in which Christians know that we can actually know something is because God actually does speak. He does actually say, this is the way that it is. And that's where we begin to explain how we actually know things. Because he created a universe in which we can know things. He created a mind in which we can know things, right? So that sort of stuff. And then the final tactic that I have on there is to talk about love and how it doesn't really matter. All this other stuff doesn't matter if we're not motivated by love. That if we don't actually love that other person and care about them, we're just playing some sort of game, and it's not fruitful. You may win sometimes, you may lose sometimes, but as far as God's concerned, it's meaningless. That's what chapter 13 is all about in 1 Corinthians, is that if you don't have love, you're not motivated by love, your efforts are fruitless. And so we have to always bring it back that why we're doing this for people is because we love them and we want to love them. We want to see them break free of idolatrous ways of thinking, things that trap them and reduce their humanity, like materialism does, to nothingness, right? That they as a person don't actually exist. We want to free them from that bondage because we love them. So that's what I got. Thoughts, questions, other ideas? Yeah, Dennis is, for Vanessa's benefit, there's a function, and actually, I assume Janet, you and Renee probably know this. In Zoom, you have a function where you can electronically raise your hand. If you're on a PC, it'll be where it says participants, and then you'll see where a function where you can raise your hand. And what that does on my screen, it shows me that you raised your hand, and I'll call on you.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. All right, so Dennis has got his hand up.
Yeah, it's kind of like going back to the 6th grade, If I cutting in and out, it might be because of everybody else's microphones. I'm trying to figure this out with this new little tablet that I have. But John, what I was thinking about, some of the topics that need to be addressed with people or that we're going to run into. One of them that I see a lot is, why am I here? What's the purpose of life? And that might be in the existential question that you were talking about, but why? What am I here for? And what's it all about, Alfie? And then another one, which kind of falls in line with the moral question. It's my life. I'm going to do with it what I want. Party, party, party. It's my life. And I should be able to do whatever I want to with my life. If I want to get 7,000 tattoos from my eyelids all the way down to the tip of my toes, I can do that. Well, and you can, but it's going to look really weird. Another one I thought about was, what about aliens? Because that's asked a lot. Is there anybody else out there? Is there any other extraterrestrial life? And people ask that, and it's a fun topic to cover with people, but because it's absolutely absurd. But that's one. You already mentioned this one. Is there an absolute truth? And that definitely is a big one. And then, is there really going to be an end to the world? Is there going to be an end to the world? I think that's a big one that comes up. And the last one that I wrote down was, I call it universalism. We're all children of God. We're all a part of God. We need to love everybody. Well, yes, we do need to love everybody, but we're not all children of God. And that's a big one, especially right now. Whether you're Baha'i, Hindu, Muslim, pedestrian, dirt of the world, we're all part of God. So those are the things I thought about that.
Those are really good, Dennis. Those are really, really excellent. I think especially the aliens and the universalism. Universalism is a very big topic, and it's typically part of the problem is universalism. You can be talking about universalism in terms of salvation, which is typically a Christian discussion, or universalism in terms of Eastern religions and philosophies, and which is a very, very different thing. And the people in the West typically don't understand. They mingle Western Judeo-Christian ideas with that concept when they're thinking about it, talking about it, believing it, that kind of thing. And they don't actually know it now, because that's not where that stuff comes from. But yeah, those are all really good. Let's see. Kenny and Laura had their hand up.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I had a couple more topics. I don't think you had mentioned them. Maybe you did, but I missed it. But just a few things that I've seen kind of become more prevalent is, especially a lot of college professors and such, is they kind of want to say that both sides are correct. So especially with like evolution, they want to say they believe in common descent evolution, and then also that the Bible is true, but they just take it in a very non-literal form, which I know you talked about. That is first part of Genesis being literal or not, but a lot of people want to say, well, both are true, and not really draw a line at all. Another question that I've heard of,
are you touching on, because one of the things that I didn't really touch on in the questions was relativism, and that's typically where that goes. But There's no absolute truths. There's just relative truths. So that's why, Christianity and the Bible can be true, and evolution and atheism can be true. Because we're equivocating about what the word true means. But is that what you're talking about?
Not quite going that far. I'm talking more about like a lot of churches are becoming what they call more progressive or moderate, where they don't want to say anything that contradicts science, and a lot of professors will go to church still because they were raised in it. So they will say they're a Christian and they go to church and all, but then they also pretty much affirm all the science stuff that is opposed to Christianity and just kind of throw that part of Christianity out.
I gotcha. Okay.
Part of that is going to be creationary or evolutionary creationism or evolutionary theism, where Christians will advocate for the legitimacy of evolution, which is probably what Kenny's talking about.
Yeah, theistic evolutionists are like that, where you can, you have a theistic evolutionist who's a Christian who believes completely in Darwinian evolution, and that it just doesn't really work. But there's lots of them. So yeah, that's a good one. What else?
Why doesn't God make himself known more clearly? So if God's around, why doesn't he just come out and tell us he's around? Which is a pretty easy answer to that, but that's a big one I hear a lot of people throw out. Like, why didn't God just come and tell me? He write it in the sky or something.
That's good. Yeah, that's a really good one.
And then third one would just be, and that's just more just kind of what the other side does, that they argue for the indefinite multiple galaxies and universes, and that the
multiverse.
Multiverse.
Yeah. That's a big subject. You know why the multiverse is a big subject these days? Because the people on the atheistic side of the coin, the argument, have come to the conclusion that they've come to see they cannot explain life in this universe, that it doesn't work. And so they've had to create the multiverse in order to explain why life actually is occurring in our universe. And it's absolutely, people try to use it as a thing to say, well, yeah, but you got the multiverse, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, the fact that you have to resort to that demonstrates that you've lost the argument, right? That you already know you've lost it.
Yep.
Anyway, okay. What else, Kenny?
Those are the three things I thought of. I had a bunch of other ones, but you had them all already listed.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so Jerry and crew, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I would say I have a couple of comments. One is that the idea of some of the background worldview and the way of approaching. There's going to be some background and groundwork for logic as well, and I think that should probably precede most of the discussions on the questions. And then what was the next one? So along with what Dennis was saying is Ravi Zacharias, he likes to always approach his apologetics from a four-quadrant perspective, where the most meaningful answers to any worldview are how to explain origins, how to explain meaning of life, how to explain morality, and how to explain destiny. So, and I think Dennis touched on at least two of those. What is the meaning of life, and is the world going to end? Or basically, where's everything headed? What's the destiny of life, destiny of the world? For a materialist, it's nothingness, basically. And so then you come into a theistic worldview, which then offers some type of usually an afterlife that gives meaning to what we're currently doing and explaining where we're going. So I think that framework has been pretty helpful. And I think also part of the apologetics is going to be, I've gotten back, I've been reading pretty consistently Total Truth again. I think part of the groundwork is going to be explaining how we have to combine all the spheres of not just epistemological knowledge, which is knowledge in our mind, but also experiential or subjective or existential knowledge, which would be reality, how we experience life. We have to talk about how those need to be meshed together when forming an apologetic.
Yeah, actually, let me take a quick note here, because a sort of a groundwork subject is is Schaeffer's two-story view of truth, which is, he coined that phrase, but it's, since the Enlightenment, that has been the way in which, well, even before that, long before that, and she goes into that in her book, and he goes into that in a couple of his books, and shows how people have basically bifurcated the kind of real factual truths and science from, moral, spiritual truths, and that they're in two different camps. And one is objective, which is the real, evolution goes into that category, right? That's in the realm of reality, and that's objective. And then the upper story, that's subjective. That's subjective truths. It's, might be true for you, it's not true for me. It's not the same, morality is not the same as if we both jump off the cliff, will both of us fall? Well, but in the upper story, well, maybe it's true for you, maybe it's not true for me, that kind of thing. And that whole concept is very eye-opening when you begin to actually unpack it, because you start to see very quickly that it's what hobbles the modern mind.
Yep.
Did anybody else over there have anything they wanted to add?
Nope, just taking a lot of notes. Actually, I would say I agree with what Jerry said about how laying down the groundwork for things like worldviews is going to be kind of essential before going into sort of the depths of these topics. I actually wrote down maybe doing worldview first, and then how do you know you have knowledge, and then going into, is there a God? Because I think those first two things are super important. It's well, first of all, you have a worldview. Second off, knowledge is, a real thing, and therefore once you lay down those two things, you can then look for what is true knowledge, which is there a God, and then go from there. So.
Okay, good. Dennis put his hand back up.
I don't know who that was talking.
That was Renee.
That was me.
That was awesome, because what I thought about what you were talking about, how do I know what I believe is true?
Yeah.
How do I know that I know the truth? That wasn't really what I was thinking about, but you just spurred that in my mind. And I don't remember what it was that I was thinking about. I hate that when that happens to me. But I'm sure it's already been covered. Jerry had sparked something in my mind, and I don't know what it was anymore.
Was it I get the 4-quadrant approach to apologetics on origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. Did any of that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, it was in that, Jerry. Golly, it sucks getting old. It really does.
You got to use more external RAM.
I guess I
need external storage.
I need to get an external hard drive to plug in.
This is my.
It'll come to me, but no, this is all really good, very, very good.
Vanessa, how about you?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. So I think I thought about, we could have a discussion about, okay, well, what do we think the priorities are here? But the list is so long, it might actually be more fruitful for me to compile this list and send it out to all you guys, and then for you to kind of go through and think about, not just from your own perspective, but from the people that you know that you would love to get answers to, and what are their questions, and what you think those priorities are, and so to kind of think through that, and then come and maybe we can sort of post back and forth about that. It actually might be good to form. Is everybody here on Facebook? Okay, so then maybe we could use a messenger group to kind of kick those ideas around. Yeah, Dennis.
I remembered, and before I forget,
okay,
it was today, and I guess this always happened, but I see it more prevalent today. Well, this is what I think. This is what I think. And I'm sure that falls into one of your categories there, John. But
Yeah.
I always say it doesn't matter what Dennis thinks. It really doesn't. As long as, but it does as long as I'm thinking the truth or truth. But people will say that kind of goes along in line with, it's my life. I can do whatever I want. I live my life the way I want, right? No.
Yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few of the modern era philosophies sort of push that concept, especially their offshoots. Feminism, for instance, has a lot of that embedded into it. Postmodernism itself does, but in a different kind of way, because it's not what I think, it's what my group thinks. That kind of true postmodernism. Anyway, a lot of people, they have a lot of postmodern views, but they're not postmodernists, but they're affected by that way of thinking. Okay, so if everybody's good with that, what I'll do is I'll put this list together. I'll put a Facebook Messenger group together and send it out to you guys, and then you can kind of chew on it, kind of kick ideas back and forth in the group, and we can come out with I think probably what the best thing to do, if you look at everything, is let's pick the top 10 things, right? And what are the top 10 things that we'd like to tackle? And then I think probably the best to think about that if we get some people to come that are the ones we're trying to reach, which are the ones that are struggling with questions, that it probably would be best to focus on the the questions that they have and deal with those. And if we don't, then definitely develop our skill set at answering the questions, but more importantly, doing kind of what Jerry talked about, and which is sort of laying that groundwork for the tactical things, the structural things. How do you approach the subjects in the first place? When somebody says, to Dennis, well, this is what I think. Okay, tactically speaking, how do you approach those kinds of statements and help that person to see that, if it's true that what you think and what I think are relative, then it's true that what we think is irrelevant. And so either it's true that there is a way to think that's true, or it's true that the way you think is not true. One or the other, but helping people see that. Yeah. All right.
So think doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
But how do you tactically handle those things? All right. So, so the second thing was in terms of the time, and I tell you what, because I know Jerry, you have to go in like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's deal with this question, and then we can tackle the third one, because I know Renee probably has some ideas about this. First of all, is Sunday evening a good time to do? Jerry's got his hand up.
We're probably going to see people coming in later at later dates as this fellowship grows, and it would be good to have, the groundwork once we get it set for the logic and that kind of stuff that Jerry was saying. We need a piece that we can hand to people who come on board 3 months from now, so they have that groundwork as well.
Yeah, one thing is I've set this, unlike the other groups that I have where I have to manually start the recording, this group automatically starts the recording. So that these will all be recorded so that people can go back and see what was discussed, what questions were addressed, what training was presented, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Okay, so Sunday night.
Works.
I figure it works for all you guys because you're here.
Yeah.
Do you guys, is once a month good? Do you want to do it more often? Do you want to do it less often? And let me hear from everybody. Twice a month?
I think it's going to depend, John, on if these questions need time to be investigated and who's going to be presenting the information. For example, if it's going to be you and myself, then we probably could team up and do more than one. But if somebody else wants to present, they might need time to look at and get some information together. So I don't know. It's probably going to depend upon who's going to actually be doing the talking, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be good to kind of spread that love around. And if we do that, and just give people, most of the subjects that we've talked tonight, I'm very comfortable, teaching on them. And so I know I can do most of them with only a little bit of preparation, but I think it's better if people, you learn more when you teach.
Absolutely.
And so I do think it would be very good for everybody who's participating, who wants to get better at this stuff, to have the opportunity to take a subject and study it and then teach it, so that they're going to grow because of that in that subject. And it's really good to take one that you don't really know that much about, and then those of us who might have more information about that subject can be helpful to that person along the way. But if we, again, spread that love around, you could have let's say we've got 10 people that all want to participate in doing that. Well, if everybody taught one time in a row, well, even if you did it every week, it's 10 weeks before you did it again. If it's every month, you're going to do it once a year. So there should be, even if we did it every 2 weeks or so, or twice a month or something like that, I would think if we've got enough people who are willing to do that and participate in doing some study and learning a particular subject and then presenting on that subject, that there would be plenty of time for people to do their homework before presenting. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah. I think we should try doing it twice a month, like every other Sunday maybe. And if that doesn't work out, we can adjust down the road, cut it back, or expand as the need arises.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is that it's not like we're locked into something. If we try something and we don't like it, we can change it.
Right. Precisely.
Vanessa, what do you think?
Either is fine with me. If you're doing it more frequently, I might find that I can't make every one. Once a month, I can probably plan around. Twice a month, I don't know. But it also sounds like these topics are pretty well standalone, and once the groundwork is laid, you don't have to probably catch every single one to still benefit.
Sure, and you can always watch the recording later. Kenny, Laura, Linda, what do you guys think?
We're kind of leaning more towards once a month, but like it doesn't matter how often. We just might not make all of them.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think in that case, why don't we try twice a month? Say, what this Sunday was, it's the first Sunday after the first Wednesday of the month, right? And I did that on purpose because our virtual fellowship, the first Wednesday of the month is what we call Holy Spirit Night, and it's where we practice the manifestations. And there's quite a bit of prayer time and stuff like that. And if things are coming up in this, I'd like to have that happen before this. Typically, is why I picked this, so that we can be in prayer for that, for this thing. If we think there's somebody who's going to be coming, or there is somebody who's coming, it's nice to have a lot of people praying for that person. So we could do this time and then 2 weeks later, and then we'll catch twice a month.
Cool.
So what would that mean for the next time?
Well, the 18th is
I'm looking it up.
It would end up being the fourth Sunday of the month, right?
The 25th this month.
Yeah.
Fourth, yeah.
Okay. And then in July, it would be the 9th and the 23rd. Okay. I can send out a schedule and just work around it. Again, I think, what Vanessa was talking about is, if we have enough people who are contributing and teaching, if you can't make a Sunday, no big deal. They're going to be recorded. You just go back and watch the recording, and you'll catch the material from that time.
Perfect. And can you send us a link to where it'll be uploaded, John? It's like YouTube channel?
Yeah, I'm thinking I probably will start a YouTube channel just for this.
Perfect.
And then you can subscribe to that and get it when they come out. Okay, so then the last thing was, just a discussion about how do we get people to come?
Right. Well, I definitely think putting the word out on Facebook, just because that's my generation, that'll always be what I advocate for, is like I can spread the word, especially having the next date going forward. I can say, hey, if anybody has questions, about, Bible stuff, apologetics, however we frame it, I can let my friends know and I can message them and stuff like that. That's one way to do it.
One of the things I was thinking about, Renee, is that we're going to have situations where somebody has a question that they're wrestling with, or that they think is that stumper, right? They think, I don't know why people think that what about the dinosaurs is a stumper, but they think it's a stumper. And so, what about the dinosaurs, huh? It's like, what are you talking about? Why is that even a question? And,
Right.
I like to come back, well, what about the butterflies? Huh? What about the butterflies? It's totally irrelevant.
The Anunnaki.
Yeah.
The Anunnaki and the lizard people.
Yeah. So,
yeah, taking over the world, they are.
So, but people have questions, and they won't necessarily come. Right? But what we could offer them is, hey, we'd like for you to come and just listen, and you can interact, because you may have a follow-up question to your original question based upon something that was said, right? So come. But if they're kind of, I don't want to really do that, but they do have this question, say, well, I tell you what, we're going to take that question, we're going to address it in our meeting. It'll be recorded, and I'll send you the link.
That's cool. That's cool. I before this meeting tonight, John, I was looking at Matthew chapter 10, when Jesus sent out the 12. Because there's a beautiful formula, if you want to use the word formula, whatever. But he says in there, if you go into a town or a house and they receive you, stay there. Stay there and work with those people. But if they don't receive you and they reject you, well, then move on. You can spend too much time with people that absolutely do not want to learn. And there's plenty of those out there. We need to find those people that really have an honest question, not just a question, pardon my French, everybody, where they just want to mentally masturbate, but where they really want to learn, you know, and really have honest questions, because we can spend a lot of time and waste time on those that just want to debate and argue, and we get nowhere. We need to find those homes and towns that receive us, that want to know. And that's just a process of elimination.
Yeah.
Sadly enough, but that's true.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah, I would say, Dennis, it's why I like using the phrase a person who's struggling with a question.
Yeah.
You know, a person who's struggling with a question, they're actually looking for an answer. A person who's using a question just to try and debunk your view and to support the view that they're committed to, they're not really looking for an answer to the question. And, you know, it doesn't take too long to figure that out, that they're really not, they're not listening. They're not interested in understanding why their particular view doesn't actually hold water. They're just committed to it. You know, but you can see that, you know, pretty quickly and kind of determine, you know, is this person really, again, struggling with a question that I want to help them with? And if they're not, they're just looking to argue. I'm not really loving them by continuing that argument with them.
Yeah. True.
Hey, Gabe. All right. Well, okay. So, any other thoughts about how do we get people to come? Besides, you know, putting some stuff out on social media, inviting people before the meetings, asking them questions, and telling them we'll answer those questions.
Right. I can maybe talk to Gallagher. I don't know how far do you want the reach to go, but I can see if he can put something specific about it, maybe on like STF Online. I don't know if they'd want to do any kind of advertising for it through the website, or if you even want us to, but that's another option that would broaden the reach. So I'll kind of leave that up to you if that's something you want us to do.
You know, one thing might be to have an email address that people could send questions to,
Yes.
that could then be captured and handled, and then you know, maybe sent back out to them, send a link to them. Hey, you know, here's where that got answered.
Right.
And then if you get like, if you know, you start promoting that, and you get, say, 4 or 5 people all ask the same question, well, okay, so we can handle it in this format, but it probably needs to be a video that STF releases as well.
Right.
Publishes on the YouTube site, that, you know, on Truth or Tradition, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess you could always try word of mouth too.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is going to be word of mouth, I think. I think it's going to be, you know, talking to people that we know have problems, or questions rather, people that are struggling. Like, you know, I know Laura and I talked a lot at the 20s, 30s thing about, you know, people we knew specifically who are struggling with specific questions, and sort of trying to drum up, you know, their interest and get them to tap in. So I think a lot of it will be probably word of mouth as well.
If that concept takes off, John, and becomes really big, where people really start asking questions and they're responding a lot, one person is not going to be able to handle that. It'll eat up all their time. So whoever's the filter, or if there's more than one filter, however you set that up, but whoever's the filter needs to be able to delegate those tasks to answer those questions. Otherwise, that person that's a full-time job.
Yeah, and you know, I would say, you know, hopefully we'll have that problem.
Yeah.
I'd like to have that problem.
But I would also say that, again, by kind of inviting this group to participate in the training itself and doing the trainings, you know, picking a topic, studying it, presenting it, it's recorded, that kind of thing, and you get more and more people involved, you kind of have you have a pool then of resources to draw from for doing that kind of thing.
Agreed.
Because you could even have a Facebook group in which people could ask questions, and then I don't know. I don't know. There's Facebook groups that I'm in that are like that. They're dedicated to a topic. So Biblical Unitarian is a particular Facebook group that I'm involved in, and it has a pretty wide array of people, and it's, a lot of the time the discussion doesn't really go anywhere. So it's not super fruitful. Anything else? Gabe, what we're talking about right now is ways in which to get people engaged, asking questions, coming to these meetings, that sort of thing. And we've talked about doing social media and sharing on social media. We've talked about word of mouth, talking to friends, having an STF email address that people can send questions to that we could address, that sort of thing.
Yeah, those are all good ideas. I was going to suggest the email address, but somebody beat me to it. And I was late. Sorry for being late.
No problem. Hey.
All good.
No. It's Annalisa froze up. There she is.
Hi, Elisa.
Hello.
Now, did you know we started an hour ago? Did you have the time wrong?
No, we're doing an archive thing at my house.
Okay. I've recorded this, so I'm gonna create a YouTube channel just for this, and we'll post the recordings to that channel, and I'll send everybody out a link to the video, and then you can subscribe to the channel, as well as we're gonna create a Facebook group that is this group, because one of the things that we want to do is for this group to really participate in doing the training, so that once we've kind of identified, we had a laundry list of things. Then we lost Kate. A laundry list of things. Oh, we lost Dennis too. They must have lost their internet. They're in the same house, so. There they go. We kind of have a laundry list of things to do, and we're gonna discuss in that Facebook group kind of what do we want to prioritize, and then I'd really like to invite as many people who are blessed to do it to take a subject, tackle it, and then present that to the group. Learn about it and present it to the group. Part of the whole process of getting better at this stuff by actually doing it, not just kind of sitting back and listening, but actually participating in the teaching itself.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else?
I would just for the people that had just popped on, like Gabe and Annalisa, just to refresh and let you guys know. It said he popped back on. I don't know, maybe he's still off. But just to let anybody new who popped on know that we're doing another one of these on the 25th of this month, same time, just for Gabe and Annalisa's information.
Yeah, what we decided is the first Sunday after the first Wednesday of the month, and then the Sunday 2 weeks after that.
And it's empty.
Does that make sense? Okay, and we'll post that in the Facebook group as well when the dates are.
You know how many boxes of cards we have?
Well, unless there's anything else, why don't we close out with prayer?
Let's do it.
Renee, would you like to pray?
Sure. All right, God, I lift to you just all the stuff that we've gone over tonight. You see our hearts. You see the vision that we want to do, the ways that we want to reach people, and get closer to you and your Son. I pray that you'd be in our midst, that your presence would be with us, and that you would lead us and guide us down this path, that you would help us to be productive, not only what we're doing, but in the questions that we choose to tackle, the order we choose to tackle them in the ways that we go about bringing people in. I just pray that you would make your spirit and your will and your intentions visible in everything that we're doing, that you would give us wisdom, guide us just as we're trying to answer people's questions and bring them to a deeper knowledge or even a first glance at the truth. So I pray that you'd help us as we're walking down this road. And I pray that in these ensuing weeks until we meet again, that you would help us to just bring together all the different little pieces that need to come in place so we can broaden our reach and continue to reach people with your truth. In the name of your son, Jesus Christ, amen.
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 All right, I will, as soon as I get the opportunity, I'll create the YouTube channel for this and send out the link, create the Facebook group, and get everybody into it. And so within the next day or so that we can start this the discussion about, okay, well, what are we going to do on the 25th?
Right.
That'd be good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for doing this, John. It was awesome.
Love you guys. See ya.
Bye.